Yo, 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 welcome back to the Wrestling Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Myers, and as always, the Wrestling Strength Podcast is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. Make sure to go to maxeffortmuscle.com, all your supplement needs. Follow us on Instagram, on social, for the motivation, for the training. We got what you need. We're to help you get your mind right, maxeffortmuscle.com. All right. I've had some great guests on here. We've had some great conversations. I'm super excited for the guest I got today. This is a guy I've known for a long time, but I've never really get to sit down and like talk face to face and really dig into his story. Now, I like to think of myself as an interesting individual. I've done some cool stuff. I go to cool places. I do lots of cool things. But when I think back about that, I think it was the Dos Equis commercial, the world's most interesting man. I think I got a guy on here today that is in the running to be the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world. I got one half of the infamous, or should we famous, infamous, however you want to look at it, the Koch brothers. I got Daniel Koch here today. What's up, Daniel?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. And right off the bat, I don't want people that tuned in to think that I'm exaggerating and just blowing you up, talking about how interesting you are. I'm going to give them just kind of a quick rundown, and then I'm going to let you kind of dive into your story a little bit. But cool. You're from the Ohio Valley.
Yep.
You and your brother from the same area as myself and Corey G. Kind of grimy wrestler cat. You wrestled at Ohio State, back in the day with Tommy Rollins and all those guys. Mm-hmm. Then, made the transition to New York, and you and your brother basically ran nightlife in Manhattan for well over a decade.
Yeah.
Through parties all over the world, and that's the part I really want to hear about, and I'm interested in hearing. And then now, real estate tycoon. You're running Ironmans. You're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about you growing up wrestling, going to Ohio State, and maybe how that kind of set the stage for some of the stuff later on.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Over the years, I've checked in with, Ohio State and what they've been up to, as we grew in New York, being that, we're from the Valley, we're very grounded. We like to keep in touch with our roots and, all that, that moral in all those types of ways that we grew up, with
we call it that blue collar mentality.
Yeah, that exactly. And we over time, we would check in, and then there's this one day where I saw you, and I was like, this guy is just out of his mind. Like, who is this guy? And literally, like, that's how I saw you when Instagram came to be. And actually, I remember when you started following me, and I started following you back. I was like, Derek, Coach Myers just, sent me his max, his 28-day shred, it's like 5 years ago. And I'm going to, do this. And he sent me the book and everything, the ebook. I remember it was like your first edition. And that's that was inspiring for me because I saw you. And that was during the early first
days.
Part of my transition. And we'll backtrack, but then we'll get to that. But that part of my life was you were like a huge inspiration to me, transforming myself into this quote unquote Ironman triathlete and changing everything about my life at that time and bringing me back to sport. Like, I saw you and I was like, this fucking guy is...
Because you've been away from wrestling for how long at that point?
Probably 15 years, 15 to, going on 20 years. But, I left Ohio State at the age of 20, you know what I mean? We wrestled there a year. And Derek and I decided that we were in a place where we needed to grow, and what bigger place than New York City, right? So it was more or less in our backyard. My dad would travel there as we were in high school. He was a conductor on Amtrak, so he took us there. We were inspired a few times. We're like, Dad, we want to move to New York. He was like, you're crazy. My mom said, you're crazy. And, we just did it. But, 15 years later, I found myself back in sport. I was burnt out. We left Ohio State because we had an opportunity in New York. We didn't know what that was. Some of the guys on the team were bittersweet, like Tommy, Blake. Those guys were like, yo, what the fuck? You just don't walk on the team and then walk off, right? We finished a full year. Like, we went there, we did our damage, and then we just decided, like, look, we asked Coach for scholarships. There wasn't any available. So we're like, look, if we're not getting paid to be at Ohio State, like, don't get me wrong. Like, we came to school to wrestle. We didn't come to school to go to school. We're like,
right.
Fuck that. We're going to go to Ohio State. We want to wrestle and be a part of that tradition. And we were. And then, that was one of the hardest years of our lives because, like, you wrestle for Ohio State. It's 100% commitment. Like, there's no other outside world. There's no parties. It's very full time. So we knew about that life, but at that point we were just getting burnt out, you know? And so we made that move. We were confident about our move. The guys didn't agree with it. Then we kind of fell out of touch with them for about 5 years, right before we opened our first restaurant in 2007. And that was when Tommy and all those guys were just, you know, they were just getting out of college, you know what I mean? And Tommy was wrestling for, you know, the worlds and headed towards Olympic status and all that stuff. So, you know, but 5 years was really all it took in New York for us to learn the business, to basically start from bottom up, you know, washing dishes, running plates, taking orders. And then, you know, we had an opportunity to take a space and flip it. We raised some money in 2007. And for the next 10 years, we just dominated like how we were raised. Like we grew up in the Valley, you know, meat and potatoes, you know, just full grind all the time, old school style, just like here, throwing weights around, getting in fights, you know, just causing fucking trouble. You know what I mean? And I had two of me. There was two of me. So everything we did, we doubled up, doubled down. You know, we just took advantage of our twin situation.
I think, you know, something I want people to understand when they think back about this, when they hear the story, and I want them to kind of think back about this time frame. I mean, I don't know much, you know, about being a, you know, club promoter or restaurant promoter or whatever, but I do know, I guarantee, because I can think about our business now versus our business then. Back then, with no or limited social media, how, you know, everything is word of mouth. Everything is based on your reputation, what you do. You have to work much harder to get in front of people and for people to come to your spot or for them to hear about you or whatever. It's a whole different ballgame than what's going on now. So let's kind of talk maybe about the early days with you guys, with your first spot opening up. Like, how did you make a name for yourself? Like, how did people know who the Koch brothers were and why they want to come to your spot?
Right. So
in New York City, of all places.
100%. So when we got there in 2002, it was a year after 9/11, right? The city was kind of in its rebuilding phase, even though we didn't know that at the time. I was 20 years old. I couldn't even fucking drink. I found an ad on Craigslist, went into this French restaurant, you know, told the guy that I had experience, you know, lied my way in. And, you know, once I got an opportunity, like anything in life, like, you know, you put your head down, you work hard, and you just work the person next to you, you got to start climbing the ladder, right? It's just like the same way with wrestling and anything else. If you work hard and you're working harder, like Colin, we were with this morning, you know, guy comes in, he's a one-time state champ, and now he's like one of the, you know,
one of the best
to do it in Ohio State. Like, so, you know, it's the same mentality with work, right? We went to New York, we were young, naive, but like we were hard workers, the hardest workers that you'd ever met. So being that there was two of us, Derek and I just constantly like, I'll try to outdo each other, right? So, you know, I would work double 7 days a week. You know what I mean? I was making money. I was young. I was hungry. While everybody was in school, Derek and I were like taking that opportunity to gain experience in the business. So from 20 to 25, we did that like every day for 5 years. And that's really like when people look at time commitments, they're like, okay, how, like when you get a mortgage for a house, it's 5 to 7 to 30 years, right? It's like when you're in a relationship, you know whether or not after 5 years you're going to get married or not, or it's time to call it fucking quits. So 5 years is really like kind of like the time frame it takes for someone to actually like either know that, you know, this is what it takes to get to this level, or, you know, you're a fucking fly by night guy and you're like, okay,
it's time to find something else.
And then you're not, you go to get in and get out. And so same with wrestling. We wrestled all our lives, and we knew that to get to Ohio State, we needed to, you know, work our ass off. So we thought that the same principle applied at all things in life. So Ohio State was really like the foundation, because we knew if we can like wrestle for Ohio State, we could probably fucking do whatever we wanted.
Right.
So that confidence like bled into New York. We got there with this, you know, Midwest charm, you know, this like very thank you, good, please, goodbye, how are you? All these manners, and like people never really like understood this type of mentality. These very like simple like manners in life that go so far.
Yeah, treat people how you want to be treated, be respectful.
100%. So like my parents raised us really well, and then we got there, and then hospitality was like, that was the principle, like, you know, hospitality, right? Like fucking be nice, you know, and show these people that you actually care and you're not just there for money. So, you know, we worked our way from, like I said, running plates to bussing tables all the way to the top where we were managing restaurants in 2006. Well, our restaurant that we were at. And then we got an opportunity to open our first place, and, you know, we needed money with that. So we were 25 years old, and we never knew how to, you know, do that kind of business. So we put a plan together, and then we opened our first spot. But it didn't come without like someone believing in us. So how did we get to that point? We got to that point because the people that we were taking care of for those first 5 years that we were in New York from 2002 to 2007 before we opened our first place, we bent over backwards for. How do you get someone to come back to see you? That's the hardest thing to do. To get a customer is great, but to get a client is a whole nother level. So
especially in a place where the options are almost unlimited.
Yeah.
So how do you get them to return to your spot week after week and spend money there?
Right. Same way that you get your people to keep buying max effort over and over and over again. So, you basically give them that experience, and we did that, and we went above and beyond, gave them our shirts off our back, and we just knew that if we just continued grinding harder and outworking everybody next to us and gave that hospitality that no one else in the city seemed to be giving at the time, over and over and over, above and beyond, there was 2 of us, then we could actually create this brand, this awareness that like, this is what hospitality should be, not like what it is. No, what it was, you went in, you spent $200 on dinner and you never even got like a fucking thank you.
Well, I think that was kind of maybe, at least as like you think of someone like New York City's kind of foreign to me. I've been there a couple times, but like the reputation of New York, at least then, was cutthroat. People are mean. People are rude.
Oh, dude. I
mean?
ate shit for 5 years. Trust me, I got my ass beat by these 2 guys from Corsica. They were both French, but Corsicans, they have this edge, they think, because that's where Napoleon's from. So they had this fucking attitude that you work for me. I mean, I was called Dirk Diggler for years, man. But these fucking guys beat the fuck out of us because, they knew they could, but also like we wanted to like, also learn the business. And these guys taught us the business, these French operators. And then we just grew into ourselves. And eventually we would just start taking over one by one. And these customers that keep coming back to us, we build this whole network of people that were willing to support us in our own journey, like our own restaurant. So we were like, okay, we have, the money, we have the space, and now we have the client. So let's do it. And, we put that together in 2007. Our first run lasted about a year. We had a billionaire landlord who was really angry at the world and just shut us down after a year. But, we realized that the restaurant business, as much as, it is emotional, we can't like let that, break us because, you grand opening, grand closing, things open, things close. That New York, it's all about like, timing too, right? The markets are always crazy because the fucking rent there is out of control. So we were learning all these things, right? So we went in, we were the operating partners, we basically were the managing directors, and we opened our first bistro and club in the same space on the plaza on 5th Avenue, uptown. And it was even though it was a success to the eyes of the world, on paper, it was a whole different story. It's a shit show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like fucking upside down.
That's often the case with high profile things.
Dude,
right?
We were trying to figure out how to run a business, but at the same time, market it and bring everybody there.
So that place, it was a bistro plus a club at night,
yeah,
right?
It was a huge spot, subterranean space. And it was a French bistro in the front. We flipped it. It was a private members club. And the guy didn't want to lose his lease, one of the operators. So he gave Derek and I the opportunity to take it and turn it into something of our own. We actually had a guy from Columbus, Blake Sayo, who I'm actually moving with down in Florida next month, build it out for us. Okay. So we came in under budget, and it was great. And it lasted about a year. But then a year later, when that all ended, Derek and I were like, look, it was called jour et nuit, French for day and night. We're like, okay, we need to turn this into something someone can actually fucking say and spell and write. So we turned our brand into day and night, and that's when we launched, our infamous brunch party. And when the world ended in October 2008, when the financial crisis hit the world with the Bernie Madoff thing. So some people burned, and some people went to the moon. We were just on the opposite end of the spectrum. We went to the moon once we launched.
So tell me about the day and night. I've read a little bit about it. So this was the way you guys branded your parties.
Yep.
And you guys, rather than having a brick and mortar space, would throw this at other locations, or kind of tell me about that.
So day and night is, it originally was, Saturday afternoon brunch, that turned into a party. And it was something that we did at one of our first restaurants, but in a very small capacity, like 40 seats, but like high net worth individuals from Europe. They would come, and spend a lot of money on partying in the afternoon and drink rosé and champagne.
Basically come for lunch, and then you just stay all day until the party's done.
We turn the music up, DJ, everything, and then people would be spending $5,000 to $10,000 at brunch. So we were like, how do we capitalize on this thing in like an American twist, right? So we basically said, let's do our own. And we launched it downtown in the meatpacking in 2008 at a venue that was like going under. We're like, look, we'll come in, we'll, turn this place inside out on Saturday, take a management fee and take like a, some sort of partnership agreement with them and, kind of feed off the revenue that we bring in. And as soon as we launched
the space is already established. They got their staff, everything. You don't got to worry about nothing like that.
Yeah, we just come in and flip the switch. We bring we brought a lot of our own people to operate. But for the most part, we had promoters, we had a DJ, but like we had our own expenses. But like our revenues were through the roof. So like we offset the expenses quick, and then we just basically took a percentage of the profit. So it was a pop-up originally, right? It's Saturday afternoon.
That wasn't, people didn't even know the term pop-up back then.
No, dude. Like there was no social media. There's no fucking Instagram, Twitter. Facebook was just hitting the scene in 2006.
See, and that's the part that fascinates me, which I kind of brought up earlier, is like to be a promoter in the biggest urban space in the country at that time.
You had
you had to have the network.
Yeah, but
and
you
I think
also
that's
had to network. Like so, Derek and I were literally like day and night. It just made sense because we were up in the morning, texting our people, that's all we had was text.
Right.
Like, and then BlackBerries came out and emails were a thing in 2009.
And when you say text, it's like, hey, I'm not sending you a snap with a picture.
Dude,
it's a
we
text.
had a text, like you hit 3 times on number 3 to just get an I.
Right.
So like, it was like Morse fucking code. So like Derek and I would text people all day long, email them eventually when BlackBerries came out. And then, we turned this into like, something that the people could not miss. And then when they got there, they either brought a friend, and Derek and I were like the guys in the room that were always working. So even though we were at my parties, I was always walking around making sure that I knew everybody and they knew me. And business cards. I have like 70,000 business cards in my apartment in New York City. I'm the business card master, dude. I literally collected like 300 business cards a week for 5, 6, 7
Which is like a relic because people don't even get business cards anymore.
No, man. You're like, what's your Instagram now? Like, so like, and we were like, we organized our business, we were very like, strategic in a way where, we opened emails and we never closed them until we did a sale. So like we'd keep an email open and running. Hey, I know that you haven't been around. You come to see me. So then we're like, what's the next logical thing is to open another space, which was in 2010 called MPD in the meatpacking, right around the corner from our brunch. So we were operating a full-time event business, right, that popped up every weekend. And then we went to the Hamptons that summer. We opened a restaurant, and next thing you know, like money was flying out of the sky, and people were like, look, I want to open another restaurant and then another one. So Derek and I were like, probably operating 6 of our own restaurants in our heyday in 2012.
Plus running the parties at other people's spots.
Yeah, 2012 and 13 all over the world. So we would go to the Hamptons in the summer. We basically started in 2009 in Southampton. We moved to the East Hampton, which is further east, in 2010. And then we basically put Montauk on the map essentially in 2011, and we did it out there 11, 12, and 13. Montauk, no, you couldn't fucking get someone to Montauk before we got there if you literally flew them in a helicopter and dropped them off on the beach every weekend. It just didn't happen. It's so far of a drive. Once you get to the Hamptons, another hour out in the middle of the water. So once we got to that level, people knew,
people are now traveling for your events.
Traveling for there just to come and spend tens and thousands of dollars on partying because they knew that they were, 1, going to get the experience that they never got anywhere else, and 2, the hospitality. And 3, they were rubbing elbows with all millionaires. So it was like everybody at the party was somebody. You had to like literally, you could not just get in the door. My door was always like, who's who. If you're not paying to play, you don't get in, or like, you're standing at the bar and looking like a bum. But like my parties were like filled with like high heels and just like, all designer from head to toe, like very, formidable people. But like, we capitalized on that from an early day back in 2002 all the way up until like, the day where we were, make our own TV show.
Well, I think probably the key is, with you guys being from the Valley, you probably operated no different than if you were home for Bel Air for Christmas, than if you were rubbing elbows with these millionaires in the Hamptons. You're still...
And that's what people believed in.
Right.
They believed that we were these 2 guys, honest, humble, loyal, hardworking,
probably
good looking.
I was going to say tall, dark hair, good looking. That didn't hurt, right?
Right. We were like, we were just giving people like everything that they were paying for, which was like, things that they never had before. And when the market crashed in 2008, the financial markets in 2008, That's when we basically launched our concept. So when everybody was like going out of business and everyone was losing money, we created this niche market that didn't exist before. So everybody was,
even though the market crashed, there's still millionaires that want to spend money every weekend.
right. So even though people in bad times or in bad moods, they still need to bring their spirits up and lift themselves up to a good place. So that we provided that. And it was also like, you know, you got more bang for your buck. So you can come with like 12, 13, 15, 20 people, have brunch and spend money. And I was looking at it like, okay, if I got $200-$300 per person, do the math. It's $6,000 for 20 people. If you go to a nightclub, they're like, okay, you can get 6 people in and 5 of them got to be girls. And you still got to spend $5,000. So look at the value. You're getting fucked in the nightclubs every night. And they're telling you can't get in.
You're giving them the experience they want in the nightclub. It's just during the day.
Exactly, but also for like more bang for your buck. So like you can get 20 of your friends in, throw a birthday party or divorce party or whatever you're doing, and I'm still got to make my money. But also I needed volume. Like my spaces were big. They weren't like 100 people. Like my places held like 500, 600, 700 people, and you know we didn't charge at the door. There's none of that. If you went to a party and someone charged you at the door, then you know you're not at the right party because like it just didn't. That wasn't my market.
It makes you feel like you're not supposed to be there if you had to pay to get in.
Yeah, man. And like if you pay to get in, then you feel like, oh, I got a ticket. I'm supposed to be here. Dude, you know what? We're not charging. You got to spend money to be here. And so, you know, but we did it in a way where it was like, you know, very tasteful, very respectful. You know, we did have a lot of fun. I sprayed more champagne and sold more rosé in New York than probably anybody's ever done. And, you know, with that came a lot of drama, though. You know, there's highs and a lot of fucking lows, man. And that's where like that everything started changing, you know, after my TV show on E, which was amazing. Should have got a spin-off, and Derek and I should have been in a different stratosphere had Instagram been what it is now. You know what I mean? Things are like
Instagram would have been tailor-made for everything you guys had going on.
It's insane. So like,
how long did the show run?
It ran a season. It was on E in 2013. You can catch it on Apple now. You can catch it on Amazon.
I watched part of an episode one time, and this is because this is when I was right after I got done training Tommy Rollins for the Olympic trials in 12.
Right.
But I remember he said he was going to New York to see you guys, where him and his wife were going up.
Yep.
And he was asking me if I knew you guys. I was like, yeah, I kind of remember the name from wrestling from the Valley, but like I didn't really, because back then you didn't really know guys unless you actually trained with them or whatever.
Exactly.
Because there was no Facebook, nothing like that.
Like
I was like, I kind of remember the name. He's like, listen. He's like, they run nightlife in New York City. And I remember I was thinking like, Tommy, quit exaggerating. Right. What do you mean they run nightlife in New York City, you know? Yeah. And he didn't explain it much more than that. He's like, no, like they really run shit. And then he might have sent me a link to it or something. And I watched part, I was like, no, these motherfuckers run shit.
Yeah. Well, listen, we worked hard, and like just any other industry, you start to build a name for yourself, right? And we created our own business. I had a company called Dual Group, which was my boutique hospitality company that did the marketing in the daytime. And then nighttime, I'd go to the restaurants. So all day I'd be working, you know, trying to get my restaurants, you know, profitable, or at least people there to make money so I could survive another month to pay rent, you know? And so, you know, we
talk about a rat race, right?
Yeah, oh, dude. And there was probably about a dozen operators in New York, and Derek and I were 2 of those 12 that made a name, that were like cutthroat. So like I was competing against other guys just like me there, just like if I was wrestling other guys on the team at Ohio State trying to win a spot for the you know, the weight
Everyone
class.
wants your spot when you're in somewhere like that.
So Derek and I were like those 2 guys that just like we're always up for the challenge, and like we're all competing. Like it was all competing, and we would stop like at nothing, man, to get what we wanted. And if that cost like, you know, money, or if it cost a relationship, or if it costed like, you know, me sleeping on my couch in my office or couch surfing all over New York for a few years here and there, like I did whatever. I sacrificed everything over and over and over again to try to be successful. You know, profitable, different story. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of craziness goes into these things, and you know, money is obviously what, you know, kind of like comes down to in the end. So there's a lot of negativity towards the end, and Derek and I just knew we needed to, you know, and that was in 2013 when we decided to pull the plug, walk away.
Think you walked away at the right time?
Yeah, I think that, like, you know, we were unhappy. There was some people associated with us that we never wanted to be in business with anymore. Mm-hmm. He took it personal. We went our separate ways. He tried to hijack the brand. He tried to get people to turn against us. You know, he went to the press. He stole my phone. He stole my Instagram. He stole my Facebook. stole a bunch of money. Like, I can go on and on and on, but like, no one's gonna fucking cry for you. You know what I mean? Like, so I went through a few years, man.
I say the Valley guy, and you probably want to just whoop his ass, right?
Oh, dude. I mean, I've been arrested 4 times in New York City for fighting. So twice downtown in Central Booking, the Tombs. I've been through a lot, and a lot of it had to do with drinking. A lot of it had to do with being unhappy and being like angry at the world, and that says a lot. Like 4 times getting arrested for fist fights. That's there's something wrong there. But like, did I have a reason? Yeah. Did they deserve what they got? Probably. But like, you grow, you live, you learn, and you try not to repeat those same mistakes. So 2014 was the last time I got arrested, and that was like the lowest point of my life. 2013 we pulled the plug. 14 and 15 were probably the 2 lowest years of
Because what did you immediately transition into after that?
I tried to stay in the business. I tried to, I was like a bull in a china shop. I didn't want to say no. I knew who we were, what we built. And I guess I just, I lost sight of who I was, right? So like, everything that I built, this empire that we had in Dual Group and Day and Night, was kind of like overnight gone. And like, we made that decision. But the problem was that other people that were associated with us tried to take our names and our brand and tarnish it and rub it through the mud all over the place. And there were a few people that betrayed me in the business. In nightlife, it's not friendly, and I wasn't a really nice guy around those times because, I had put my life's work and money into this business, and I gave the shirt off my back to make sure everybody knew we were like these honest, hardworking guys. And in the end, like, I was left with nothing. I couldn't turn to anyone. It was just like, you start to realize who your people are.
Well, you spend years and all the money and time and effort building up this goodwill, and you can lose it so quick.
Yeah.
Especially if you have people that are turning against you or kind of trying to ruin what you. So at that point, it's not even so much about the business; it's about your reputation.
Yeah, my reputation was being run through the mud. Like the newspaper would call, "Hey, we're going to come out with this. You got to comment." Like it was crazy.
Like some shit you see in the movies or a reality show.
This guy was running around, saying that Derek and I were anti-Semitic and stuff. And like, are you serious? Like 90% of my clientele is like Jewish. Like, why would it was crazy, man. Like everything was like, they were out to really run us out of New York City. Mm-hmm. It was like that. And then over the years, you know what I mean? I basically fed into it. Like I would, get into fights. I'd stay out till 6 a.m. There's a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs. I was just going down the wrong path. And I just did not know who I was anymore come 2015. And then in 16, right after I came back from Miami in March, I was actually here in April visiting my mom for her 60th birthday. And then I went back to New York, and I just woke up one day and quit drinking and changed my life after that. And that's when everything's changed. 2016.
So one of the things I'm hearing here, all right, you grew up in this competitive atmosphere, wrestling in the Valley, takes you to Ohio State. You go off to Manhattan, and that same competitive drive is what led you to be very successful.
Yes.
You walk away from the business in 14 or 15 or whatever. Now you have really no competitive outlet. But now, so you're channeling all these wrong ways, drinking, drugs, fighting, whatever.
Yep.
2016, you have this awakening. You quit drinking.
Yeah.
Now you're channeling that competitive spirit into business and then also into the triathlons. Let's talk about the triathlons a little bit.
So
because I'm super interested. Now when I did a triathlon 2-3 years ago, whatever, and I did it just kind of for a thing on my 40th, of course I turned to you for some advice. Just like anyone, you want to look to someone who does it, professionally or takes it very serious. I'm like, all right, well, I need to learn from someone who's better than me at this. So I sought out some advice for you. So talk to me maybe about why you transitioned into that, and maybe what your experience was kind of in the early days of that compared to where you are now doing the big time stuff.
Right. So 2016, put the booze down, decided to start running. I was always like, running for no reason, trying to, get healthy. But then I was like, let's sign up for a marathon. So actually what happened was I actually transferred. We got before the Ironman and triathlon, like that was when the moment I was like, I need to get out of hospitality. Mm-hmm. And that's when Derek and I got into real estate. So it was the same time. So we got into real estate, I got sober, and then I started running. And that's where triathlon kind of starts, right? The starting point is like running, right? So like I would go for all these runs, and I'm like, okay, in 2016, what can I do to like, put a goal on the wall? And so I saw the New York City Marathon in 2016 in November. I started running in April. Signed up for that, and then I got hooked, right? So for the next 6 months, I would travel all over the Northeast and run in Cleveland Marathon, Pittsburgh Marathon, Philly Marathon, you name the marathon, I was there. For the next 6 months, I ran 6 marathons.
What was your time in the first marathon?
4:40.
Oh, wow.
I walked
so slow.
the last 6. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, I ran a 3:30.
No, I started from, dude, I was
so 4:40.
I went 15, 16 years without ever going back to the gym. When I left Ohio State Wrestling, it was probably, 14 years later that like my body was through, drinking and drugs and all that stuff that just
probably some bad sleep along the way.
Yeah, man. Like no sleep. So like, it was just like, I was getting back to step one. So like, I was like, I don't care what I do in this marathon. Let's just finish.
No, 4:40. I mean, that's like soccer mom time.
Dude,
maybe.
I'm telling you, like I got the mile 20 in the New York City Marathon and I walked I probably got to mile 20 in probably like 3 hours. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I could have probably, if I was, in its different place, probably 3. And then I walked in an hour 40 walk all the way those 6 miles. It was bad.
You just couldn't make it any
I was limping.
You were going to finish it, but you couldn't run anymore.
I could not run. I looked like The Walking Dead. It was like a stick up my ass for 6 miles. It was the worst thing ever. But I knew once I finished, I was like, I think I can do this. It was crazy. I didn't give a fuck what my time was. I just wanted to finish. I was pumped. And then a month later, I signed up for the Philly Marathon. I ran a 4:05. And then my next one was like a 3:40. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was knocking off. I knocked off an hour in like 3 months. So I started to figure things out. Mm-hmm. And then in 2017, I noticed right at the early part of the year that Ohio was hosting its first ever half Ironman. Right? And I had no idea what the hell that was. But rewind back a few months when I was running these marathons, this guy came to me. He's like, yo, you should do Ironman. I was like, well, he's like, you're a big guy. I know that you can run probably, but like you would probably be better if you, did an Ironman. I was like, well, what the hell's an Ironman? And so I did some research and I'm like, wait, this guy wants me to run a marathon after a 112-mile bike, after a 2.4-mile swim? I can't even run a marathon. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was like, no. He's like, well, there's half Ironmans, or you can do a triathlon. I was like, no, I'm good. And then I thought about it, and I was like, I'm sticking to running. I'm stick to running. This guy's out of his fucking mind. No way. So months would go by. I'd keep running, injury here and there, and then I'd tackle these marathons, and I went all the way to May and did Cleveland, did a 3:40 there in Cleveland in May 17. And it was amazing, and I was like, you know what? I need more. I was like, I need more, man. This running shit is great, but like I need more. And so I went online, and I saw that Ohio was hosting theirs in July, end of July. So I got in the water right away. I got a bike, and the rest is history. And here we are 5 years later, and I'm competing at the World Championships next year. So it just turned into a monster, like you said. Like I just have this desire and this drive, and I want to be competitive, and I'll stop at nothing. And, it cost me a relationship at the time. But since then, I've been single, and I've been selfish, and I've been focusing on me. And what that means is, sometimes you need to take care of yourself. And for 15 years in New York, I was taking care of everybody else but me. And what happened was I got nothing. I mean, like, I don't say I got nothing. I would never trade my past ever. Like, I had the best time of my life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to get into details, but you can imagine, travel the world, nightlife, restaurants, TV show, celebrities, red carpet, unlimited champagne, unlimited vodka, booze, you name it. Just VIP wherever I went. It didn't matter what town, Miami, Park City, LA, you name it. And still today, nothing's changed. I'll be honest with you. I still walk around New York and people they're like, dude, and I still get the best tables with the best service. And they're like, oh, Derek and Dan. So like, I needed to remove myself from that toxic atmosphere because I built this empire that came crashing down. And then I felt sorry for myself for 2 years, was partying, lying, doing things to myself that like, you know what I mean? I was just blaming and then I realized that no one gave a fuck and no one's got to ever save you. And no one's ever got to come to your rescue, bro. Like you got to make your own decisions and create your own life. And I was 34 and I woke up and I'm like, I'm done. Pulled the plug, music stopped and started running. And here we are. I'm 39, 5 years later, and I'm in a whole different place. I control my own destiny. I have my own brokerage business. I can travel whenever I want. I can do whatever I want to do, and I still train twice a day, 7 days a week, 11 months a year.
So you got the World Championships for the Ironman coming up. Now, just in case anyone was listening earlier and didn't really catch the details of it, so an Ironman is what, 2.4 mile swim.
Yeah, it's 44 football fields.
Yeah, so you got to swim 44 football fields to start out. Then you have to bike
112 miles.
112
So
miles
from here
on the
to
bike.
Wheeling.
Yeah, so from Columbus to Wheeling. And then you don't get to lay down on the couch. What do you do after you bike?
You got to run a marathon.
You got to run a fucking marathon after that.
In the middle, at 1 p.m. usually is when like 12:1. So the highest point of the sun, the hottest part of the day.
Yeah.
And these courses aren't like just all flat and fast, you know. And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
all,
You got hills, you got everything, right?
Yeah, man. So
have you done the one in Hawaii yet?
No. So that's the next step. I did qualify for
because that one you have to qualify for, correct?
Yeah. So I did qualify for the World Championships. That was supposed to be Kona this year, but they moved it to St. George, which is in May next year.
Or St. George.
Which it's in Utah.
Okay.
So I didn't qualify yet for the World Championships in Kona 2022. I still have an opportunity to do that, and that's the next, obviously, the evolution. But so, you know, I basically in 2017, once I did the Ohio Ironman, the first half in that July 17, man, I was hooked. I was like, you know what? This is everything that I wanted it to be and more. And so for the next 5 years, every 3 months, I would do a half Ironman all the way up until the end of 2019. I did my first full, and I told myself I don't want to do a full Ironman until I go into it ready and competitive. So I did 10 half Ironmans for 3 years, and in month 34, I did my first full Ironman. So I basically prepped my body for 3 years and my mind for 3 years before I went into my first Ironman, which was in 2019. 2020 was canceled. Got injured, you know, went through hell last year. And then this year woke up and had goals and then got through the whole year and then ended this year with a full Ironman and placed at the top of my age group and got a ticket to the World Championships.
So I just want to put it in perspective for people, just because most people aren't going to be able to compare the swim times and the bike times. They're not going to have any point of reference for it. I can understand just because I've done a miniature version of it.
Right.
But so like at this last one where you qualified for the Worlds, what was your time in the marathon?
I ran at 3:45.
So a 3:45, so a sub 4-hour marathon, which is good any day of the week for someone to go run that in a marathon after 100 plus miles on the bike, after 2.4 miles swimming, 44 football fields.
Right.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's relative, right? So like at all things, like if you put the time in and you do the work, just like max effort, you know what I mean? You can get to the top. So I knew it would take a lot of time. I knew it would take a lot of discipline, like everything in life. I knew it would take a lot of like wanting, like you got to want it. And, you know, it came with just being very focused and selfish. Like I would never miss a workout. I'm on a team that if you miss one session, you're off the team. You cannot miss.
You're either in or you're out.
Yeah, and the coach doesn't just take age group athletes like myself. My coach, James Peterson, he's one of the best. He won USA Triathlon Coach of the Year, USA last year. That's a pretty big deal, you know what I mean? And he has about a half a dozen pros that don't mess around. They're all D1 athletes. And, you know, I knew that when I signed on with him 3 years ago that it was going to be all or nothing. And that meant twice a day, every day, 7 days, no days off, ever. And I wake up every day. Yeah, am I fucking moody? Am I like in a bed? You know, am I sore? Am I tired? Yeah, but like I put myself in this place because it takes care of everything else in life. You know what I mean? Like I really feel like the work that I do there makes everything else a little bit easier. Not like it's all got to come to me, but it makes everything else feel like I can control it. You know, I can also dictate and manage and kind of like make new doors open from these opportunities. And so I spend a lot of time suffering and a lot of time like enjoying it. And if you don't like this sort of sport mindset, then you can't do it. You just can't, because it's not something that, you know, is fun like every day, but it's all worth it. Once you cross an Ironman finish line, it is better and greater than any feeling, any drug, any relationship, anything you can possibly imagine. Like it is the most insane feeling you could ever possibly imagine. So like if you want that feeling, then you'll do whatever it takes, even if it means training 20, 30 hours a week, you know what I mean, and losing your mind every week for half a year, a year. People train for these things for years, man. I mean, and once you cross that finish line, you just want to do it again. You know how it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, man. So, like, it's been, you know, there's a lot of give. You know, there's a lot of take, but there's more give. You know what I mean? And it takes a lot, but it gives you so much more.
Well, I'll tell you something, I mean, kind of off topic, but something we talked about earlier before we were on the show. You I'm always constantly trying to learn from people when I'm around them, especially people that are better in different areas than I am or whatever. So we were talking a little bit about running, and you gave me some good advice about running, something I've never really thought about. You told me to stop focusing on, hey, I want to run this many miles or at this pace. I should focus on the time committed. So kind of talk about that a little bit. I think this will be a good takeaway for any coaches.
Yeah.
And for athletes that run distance and stuff like that.
Right.
Tell me that.
So running's relative, right? So like, clearly like, people want to run far and fast, right?
Yeah.
That's like two
Absolutely.
So, they're like, well, how far can you run and how fast can you run? Like those are the two fucking things that matter. And so if you look at time, then you can say, well, how many miles can I run in this amount of time, right? So if you take the miles out of it and you just focus on, if you run for 1 hour, then I know I can get this far. Instead of like putting yourself in this place where you're like setting yourself up for failure every day of, I need to run 10 miles today. You don't need to do shit. You need to run for an hour, quality miles, and let the work take care of itself without trying to push yourself.
And someday that might be this pace or it might be that pace, depending on how you feel.
Yeah, you go by feel a lot. I say run for time, not for pace. Once you start looking at your watch, it's over.
Because I'm always looking at pace.
And
probably way too much. I'm constantly just watch my pace when I'm running.
It's tough because you want to make sure that you maintain a certain. But like, let's be honest. Like, running's about managing heart rate. You know what I mean? If your heart rate is at 150. 160, that you're like you're playing right on the edge of like, oh, I can go a little harder. But like, how much harder can you go at a certain heart rate, 170, 180, without blowing up or like coming to a stop?
Right.
And so like, what's the point of like getting to a certain heart rate if you can't stay at that heart rate for a certain amount of time? So yeah, run for time. Like, get up in the morning, say I'm going to run for 30 minutes. That's it. Don't try to say I'm going to run 5 miles and be like, oh, tomorrow I got to run 5 more miles. It's exhausting to think about how many miles you could run in 1 week. Instead, back into it. This week I'm going to run 3 hours. I'm going to break it up into 2 30-minute sessions, 1 hour session, and maybe another 45-minute session. Okay, that's 4 runs, right? That's 2 hours and 45 minutes. In 2 hours and 45 minutes, that you could probably run 20 miles. Like, it's just a mathematical equation if you run a certain pace. Instead of waking up and saying, oh, I got to run 40 miles this week, I'm going to die. Or I'm going to run 50 miles or 60 miles. These athletes are like, okay, I'm going to run 2 hours today. Dude, go out and try to run 2 hours right now. It's got to take every bit of 2 hours and you're going to run 15 miles. Like, that's, you know what I mean? You're going to get there because inevitably, like, you're going to start tacking those miles with the time. So instead of like trying to, put yourself in a place where you're always going to be disappointed because you're not hitting your pace, and you're not hitting your miles, you know what I mean? Start backing into a place where you feel this week I'm going to run 6 hours, next week I'm going to run 7 hours. And then the miles will start taking care of themselves. It's a
totally different way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's so simple, and it's the other most obvious variable, but it's one I've never once thought about when I ran. Right. I always just think about my pace or my mileage.
Yeah. If you wake up today and say I'm going to run an hour, that's a lot of miles, dude. Like, I don't care who you are, you're going to run 7 miles at least. If you're running an 8-minute pace, it's 56 minutes.
Right.
So like 7 miles is no walk in the park. And it's also not like a great over the top feat. You're not like, oh, I ran 7 miles today. I'm like, you can't. No, dude. Like, you're going to add those miles up over time. You know what I mean? But then you're going to put in a long run. And then, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to wake up and run an hour and a half. That's a long run. Anything over an hour and 15, hour and a half is a long run. And then once you get to that level, you're running 10 miles. You're in the double digits. So if you're doing an hour and a half on Sunday and you're doing 10 miles, then it's a long run. And if you're doing a tempo workout and a track workout those other 2 days, like I see you go to the track a lot, you definitely don't want to like overdo it. You're just asking for injury. That's all it is. Like, especially at our age, even the younger guys, they all want to run fast and not far. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
that's fine. But like, get on the treadmill, run 45 minutes. You're going to get 5.5 miles in. You're going to get 6 miles in, and you're going to feel good about it. And you're going to be like, oh, that was only 45 minutes. I can actually go and stretch out and do this and do that, because you can do all that in an hour, And once I started applying that method, and my coach was like, we're going to run for an hour today, and you're going to do the bike for 2 hours, and, you're going to swim for 50 minutes. Then it started putting things into perspective. Perspective is huge in endurance sports because the miles will add up. You know what I mean? And that is all, people call it that, they're clocking their miles. They're clocking their miles. They're clocking their miles. and they use the word clock with miles because, it's the time. How much time are you putting in? Run 5 hours a week. I guarantee you run 5 hours a week, you're going to hit 30 miles. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of miles for someone who doesn't run.
Yeah.
It's a lot of 10 miles is a lot of miles for someone who doesn't run. It's all relative.
Yeah.
But running hard all the time, Coach, yeah, that's
Well, I think that's maybe one of the mistakes I've been making over the last couple years as I've gotten more into running. I mean, I still only run like 2 or 3 days a week because if I do much more than that, my body will start to break down.
Yeah.
But maybe partially because
you're running too hard.
I'm running too hard all the time.
Too hard.
So I might have a track workout, I might have a 2-mile run, and then I might do a 10-mile on the weekend. And each one of those, I'm doing it as hard. Even if it's a 10-mile, I'm running that 10 mile as hard as I can.
Yeah.
Instead, I should just say, hey,
you said it right there. I have a 2-mile run. Instead of saying 2 miles, it's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because that's 7:30 pace. So those are already fast miles. So if you're running for 15 minutes, I'm going to be like, what do you mean 15 minutes? What do you got to do in 15 minutes? I'll show you. I'm going to run 2 miles. But it's 15 minutes, and you're like, oh, damn, man, that was like a good 15 minutes, and I'm done.
Yeah.
16 minutes.
Well, see, it's like if we run it, like in the past, when I'd run a 2-mile, it's like the standard for me is a 12-minute 2-mile.
Yeah.
So like you run a
12-minute
2-mile, at least for me, like my legs are ruined the next day.
Yeah.
So maybe I just need to say, all right, I'm going to run a hard 15 minutes, and maybe I'm running, at 10-mile-per-hour pace for some of that, but maybe some of it's less, whatever. But it just will probably.
Do you run a lot outdoors?
Yeah.
So
I almost run all outdoors.
So yeah,
now.
the conditions. You're running hills. You're running against the wind, the sun, the rain, whatever it is, and so. An 8-minute pace is like a good compass for people to stay on because you can swing 30 seconds either way on a good day or a bad day. Yeah. And a 7:30 pace is that's a good effort. I don't care who you are. You know what I mean? And so a lot of runs should be recovery runs, shuffle runs, enjoyment runs, not like, oh, I need to go run this because like I need to check my heart rate and I need to check in with my endurance. Like, dude, you're not really got to get anywhere with 2 miles, you know what I mean? But like if you get it two recovery miles in, you'll feel better about it. And like that'll not affect your next day's work, especially if you want to run 3-4 days a week, you know what I mean? You gotta scale back. You gotta be like, okay, 1 hard day out of 4, 2 out of 5. And so you'll start to, understand that formula and you're like, okay, it's all about running easy. And then
it's going to be a total mind change for me, but I feel like this is really going to help me, especially as I start running again now in the spring. I kind of take the winter off. Usually I'll run a little bit here and there,
right?
But I'll start ramping it up in the spring to get ready for summertime in case I want to do any races or anything.
You got a triathlon in your future here soon?
I'll do something this summer for sure.
Cool.
I'm not ready for for a half Ironman or anything yet. I got to get better at swimming.
You know
what I mean?
We'll get the pool in, and
Well, the pool's going to put in April, so next time you come in and visit, we'll get over there. We'll do some laps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, Ironman, it's a lifestyle, man. Like you got to realize that like the training is the entry, and then everything. Like, and I told the Ohio State team this the other day. Everything outside of that is a lifestyle, and the decisions that you make towards your nutrition and your recovery are going to affect your performance. And so I know that I have 2 sessions a day, every day, 7 days a week. So what am I doing the night before, and what am I eating to get back to the training session the next morning and to
get back to your baseline so you can
feel 100%. Like I don't want to go into next day's workout and be like, oh, I just ate a cheeseburger last night. I got 4 hours of sleep. That's not helping anyone.
No.
That's just going to, to take shit away from you instead of adding it. So that was like my message to them. And, it takes you places you never thought you could go to, you know what I mean? And this sport is like giving me so much. It's made me like realize that there's so much more to life than like nightclubs and, good dinner parties and hot chicks and all that stuff that came with the nightlife, which was great, and
you can still have that to celebrate your race when it's over, you know what I mean? But not every day. That can't be your life.
Dude, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
If I decide to open my own restaurant with my own money and no partners one day and, decide to have another drink if I wanted to down the road, then, that's all there. There's nothing, it's not going anywhere. I just needed to take myself out of that gray area, put myself into some black and white truth, hard truth. And, we talk about this earlier, and the pain that we endure, is something that, we all, look forward to, because it reminds us that we're, human and we're fighting for something much greater than, a quick buzz.
Yeah, I think that kind of sustained suffering during long conditioning work, it's very meditative to me. And it's one of the times when it sounds like it's such a cliche, but it's when I feel really alive. I'm very cognizant of my mortality, you know, because you feel kind of close to death in a certain way.
You sure
But
you're mortal? I don't know. You're mortal.
But you feel very alive in the same way. So I think too, I always have so much different things going on, business wise, personal, whatever. There's always a million things floating around in my head.
Yeah.
It's maybe one of the only times my mind is clear when I'm out on the road. All I can think about is my breath, my pace. I'm not gonna be thinking about my pace next time. I'm gonna think about the time, total time. And I just keep thinking about, you know, that, all right, don't heel strike, kick, run, kick, breathe, you know, and just, it's a very satisfying feeling in a weird way because it's very painful too.
Yeah. I mean, it comes later in life. I really believe that, you know, most kids in their 20s and 30s, they don't understand that, you know, there's that part of life yet. I mean, it comes with time. I feel like these young athletes, they're waking up and they're training their asses off and they have that quick bounce back, you know, but the older you get in life and the more you learn, you know, you start to understand that these things, you need to feel this, you know, you need to like go back to remember what that felt like. And it brings that life to you, you know, and it's not going to just come to you without the work, you know, and the pain is part of like,
I always think too, it's not going to come to you when you just get on the elliptical at Planet Fitness somewhere.
No,
you have to, whether it's out on the road, whether it's in the gym, whatever, you have to be uncomfortable. It doesn't need to be perfect conditions, but you have to push yourself to the brink.
Yeah, the pain is part of the deal, and that's what we love. But yeah, I mean, it's been a good 5 years, and I continue to keep it going. So I'm excited for this next race in 2022.
Well, dude, I'm excited to watch. I mean, you've been a big inspiration for me,
Yeah,
kind of watching from afar.
Vice versa. When you reached out and asked me to be on this, I was like, dude, I'm so pumped. So pumped.
I can't believe this is your first podcast ever, too. With all the stories you got, you probably need your own podcast.
No, yeah. So we did all the media, you know, back in the day, but no podcast, you know. And like Derek and I thought about it. We said we should do a podcast, but you know, we're committed to what we're doing right now. And you know, back then I had my cards all over the table, and I was, you know, doing this at 50%. That I don't know how you're like the best social media guy. So like I see this, it was like natural lateral move for you. But like for me, like, you know, I have so many ideas and I want to do so many things. I'm like, you know what, but I'm committed.
It would take too much effort away from what you're really focused on.
I'm just focused right now.
This is different. Look, I got a producer here. We got the equipment.
It's a job, dude.
Yeah. But
you can't just have a podcast and not produce.
But I get to walk in and just sit down. I'm saying it's easy for me. All I got to do is say, hey, my buddy Dan, he's really interesting. He's going to come sit down and talk. We work out, we talk.
It sounds easy, but it's like, you know.
But that's what I'm saying. I know for you it would not be easy. It's easy for me in my situation.
I hear you. But like, again, maybe down the road, once Ironman is, you know, I've done everything that I wanted to do, but I'm still like, you know, like I'm here lifting this morning. Like I'm pumped for next year. And like, you know, that door is wide open for me to keep running through that finish line.
Well, I think after you compete at the Worlds, we should have you back.
Yeah,
we should work
I'll
out.
have
We should
Derek
do it.
with me.
Yeah. I would love to do an episode with both you guys.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
For
Well,
sure.
I'll tell you one thing we got to do before we wrap up. No, we didn't talk a whole lot about, you know, wrestling strength training, but this is the Wrestling Strength Show.
Yep.
So there is two questions
yeah.
I got to ask everyone that comes on. I ask everybody the same thing. And with you being, you know, a former Ohio State, former OVAC guy.
Yep.
You're from my era too.
Yep.
So this will be perfect for you to kind of lend some insights. There's two things I'll ask. First one is, if you can think of one thing strength conditioning wise, and let's not think about your Ironman career now. Let's think about wrestling.
Right.
Whether it's Ohio State or whether back in the Valley wrestling for Belair St. John's.
Right.
If you can think of one thing strength conditioning wise that you felt like helped your wrestling, you know, so for these coaches and parents out here that are listening, what is something you feel like made a direct impact on you? It could be a workout, it could be one exercise, it could be a drill, whatever it is. What do you think there was something that helped you wrestling wise?
Full speed, man. Obviously, it's a huge part of everybody's wrestling process. But, you know, I really believe that, you know, find a partner that is, you know, going to go as hard as you want to go. And, you know, I had my twin brother, so we had the perfect mirror image of each other. And we, you know, I feel like what we did in full speed set us up for success on the mat. Like, so when we went at it at the end of practice and we had like 4 rounds or 5 rounds at 3 minutes, and, you know, we sometimes did conditioning in between those rounds, we didn't stop. So like we knew that, you know, whatever we had to do within those 3 minutes, we did it. So full speed.
So some would call that max effort.
Yeah, man.
Giving max effort.
You get it.
Boom.
So max effort. I mean, it's and I feel like a lot of people, they're tired by the end of practice and they're like, oh, let's like, not go as hard, but like they call it full speed for a reason. You know what I mean? Like it's that's what you do. There's 2 words to describe everything that you want to get to the next level. Then you got to be able to, train at that level live, full speed with your partner. So find a good partner, find someone who is ready to go with you. I know that sometimes in these full speed practices, there's a lot of, what do they call? They switch off. There's a certain name for it, but they're always trading partners, and that's great. But like, find a partner,
find someone who's really willing to fight with you full go,
that wants it as much as you, and go full speed. And don't take the full speed sessions at the end of practice off, and make it, make it worth your like make it feel like it's a real thing. Because when you're in there and you're fighting to win, you're got to remember those practices, and that's got to be the muscle memory, and those things are important.
All right, so that was good.
Full speed.
Now let's kind of flip it now. I want you to think back to when you were wrestling, or you can even think about something now that you see parents, coaches doing, and we can even talk about athletics in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be wrestling. What's one thing from a strength conditioning standpoint that people just need to stop doing? Like, you're doing more harm than good. What do you need to stop? We already kind of talked about the running thing a little bit.
Yeah.
About, focusing on miles versus time. But what is something else you can think of, like, hey, this is something, just please stop it.
Stop doing. On a strength and conditioning?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, maybe probably,
and we could even expand it to say the mental side of preparing for sports or whatever.
So, if I would look back and say, hey, this is something that I should have been doing, I'd say stop eating the shitty foods that our parents that fed us when, that we underestimated. We just wanted to eat whatever we wanted to eat. And today's world, like, we have all these options and so much nutrition out there that, like, people aren't just trying to sell us shit. They're really trying to change our lives. And, I think that, what you eat is got to determine how you feel, right? That's.
How many times did you go to wrestling tournaments growing up? You make weight, you go to the concession stand, you grab like a hot dog and a Snickers bar or whatever.
I mean, we're kids, we don't know any better, and we just putting that shit in our system. But like, that's got to directly affect how we wrestle. And so,
absolutely,
I feel like, stick to someone who knows their shit. Someone who's in the business that's, trying to help and not try to sell you things, and eat something that's going to, give you the edge. And I feel like, today's world, like, there's all these different types of channels, social media, everybody's trying to sell you, what they want. But, if you believe in a brand and you believe in someone behind the brand, then you're got to focus on, trying to give your body that sort of edge. I feel like you should stop eating and drinking bad foods, the nutrition.
Cut the crap out.
Cut the crap, and really use that as a tool. And, maybe the other guys that you're wrestling are a little better, but if you can get the edge on them because, you've, fueled yourself all week with the proper nutrition, then, that's gotta catch up and pay off. So, like, nutrition's had a huge impact on me and what I've done these last 5 years. And so if I would have been a, 20-year-old kid and someone had told me to not eat the cheeseburger, instead have, like, something more value nutritional, then, I would have done it. But no one was around back then, like, trying to help me eat better foods and drink better.
Yeah, it was just a different time,
There's just no one there to, like, teach us that. So we were just doing whatever we needed to do to survive. And that's not, if you have a chance to be great, then, like, it comes with, doing all the things right, all the time.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying you can't have, like, a cheeseburger or something, but, like, I feel like there's a certain...
I always tell my athletes, even my high school kids, I say, you got to start looking at, especially in season, look at food as fuel. Look at it as fuel. Don't worry about what you like to eat or all this or that or what tastes good. See, you got to look at it as fuel for recovery and fuel for performance.
Dude,
and if you can't look at it like that, then you're not going to perform well. You're not going to recover well.
Right. And recovery is a huge piece of the inflammation, right? If you're eating all this meat and you're shoving all this red meat down your system and you think that that's, healthy, and, it's your muscles are flaring up. And, like, the reason why you're sore every morning, you can't get out of bed, is because of what you're eating the night before, the day before that. So
what's your go-to recovery meal?
I mean, I took off from eating meat for a while, but, like, I'm back. So, like, recovery, I mean, I'll have, like, a piece of salmon, some farro, and some vegetables, whether that's cauliflower, broccoli, all the greens that you need. But, like, I'll stick to those 3 things, I'll have a base protein, and a vegetable, and just be simple. And it's clean. And
It's real similar. Like my probably favorite recovery meal: quinoa, eggs, and avocado.
The avocado. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
And hot sauce.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you know me too well.
I see it, man. I see it.
Hey, so for all the Ohio State fans that tuned in, and for anyone else that was inspired and wants to kind of follow your journey, to the Ironman Championships, where can they find you at?
My Instagram, probably at Daniel, DANIEL.M, as in Matthew, .KOCH.
Awesome, man. We'll link that all up on here, and
Thanks.
I'll send you out the the clips and all that stuff,
Hell
man.
yeah.
I'm really pumped for people to listen to this episode.
Me too. I'm dude, today was like everything. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming on, man.
For sure.